Hi everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. Today we're catching up with Graham Wood, who's the COO of Sun International South Africa. Graham, thank you so much for joining us.
Sarah.
Great. So Graham is dialing in from Ballito, which is, he's got the sea air, and we're stuck in Joburg. But anyway, we will move on. But yeah, I thought let's start by talking about, it's been a tough year for everybody in the industry. But we started to see some international resorts reopen towards the second half of 2020. Maybe you can tell us which part of the businesses are open, which part are still closed, and what sort of safety protocols have been put into place as some of the resorts attract like large numbers, sort of traditionally like the Valley of the Waves. What have you done to sort of combat and make it safe for COVID?
So let's talk about what's open. So everything is open. When we came out of COVID, we kept Naledi, the Naledi property closed, so that closed permanently. But that was part of a more involved discussion with the Free State Gaming Board, etc., relating to our wooden ball license. So we got agreement to hand the license back for Naledi to the gaming board. So that was always on the cards for closure. And then we also closed the Carousel Casino, which again was marginal at best because of the impact of Times Square Medellin when we opened that big casino property a few years ago. So that was always going to be a property that we would have had to do something about. So we did close the Carousel, and we're in the process of looking to sell the property. We have leased the casino to a new operator who is running the Carousel as an independent operation. But for the rest of the only other property that remains closed is Swaziland because of the effects of COVID. And that will remain closed for the foreseeable future until we know what's happening from the opening of the borders and the state of emergency in Swaziland, etc. So hopefully that property will open in the near future. But in South Africa, everything else is open. In essence, you could assume that we're operating all our casinos at between 50 to 60% capacity based on the restrictions, because the restrictions are based on floor space, not on machine capacity. So we're say between 50 and 60% of gaming device availability in all our casinos. And then all our hotels and resorts are open, including Table Bay in Cape Town, Maslow and Sandton, the city center hotels. Obviously struggling a lot with occupancy because of a lack of corporate demand. And then Sun City, we opened Sun City in September last year. And we've gone through various phases of having the whole resort open to only 2 hotels open. At the moment, moving forward now, since we moved into level 1, all our hotels are now open at Sun City. So we've got full operation at the resort. As far as protocols are concerned, the industry was very proactive in dealing with COVID from a safety protocol and procedures. So the Tourism Business Council came together and we developed a set of protocols as an industry, which we all as operators ascribe to. So we devised our own COVID health plan, which is on our website, where we took some learnings from what was happening around the world, and we think we greatly enhanced what we saw. So we've got a very complete and I think robust COVID-19 health plan, which included the revision of all our standard operating procedures, both in rooms, food and beverage, casino, back of house, front of house, etc., in terms of how we deal with COVID. And then we've just devolved those down to property level with very detailed health, hygiene, cleaning protocols, food safety protocols, etc., in all our properties. And I'm really happy to say that we've actually had a very low level of incidence at all our properties, way below if you had to work out a percentage of visitors that come to our casinos and our hotels, including the staff and our staff and concessionaires that work at our properties. Our incident rate from a number of people who have tested positive is very, very low, and we've probably only had, I think we've probably had 2 deaths associated with our properties, not necessarily direct employees, etc. But we've had two people who've passed away. So I think we've done exceptionally well. And I always, people criticize casinos in particular as to why are casinos allowed to be open when at some stage people couldn't go to the beach, etc. And my response is always quite simple. It's safer to be in a casino than it is to be in a shopping mall. And evidenced by our protocols in place. We, in every one of our properties, we know exactly who is on our property at any point in time, whether it be a staff member or a guest. So contact tracing, etc., it's all doable and completely traceable. We've had inspections from the Department of Labour and Department of Health at most of our properties, not all of them, most of our properties, and we've been okay. I think you mentioned something about the Valley.
I saw actually that just reopened today, visitors now.
Yeah, we've just on a ticket basis. So you'll have to book a ticket or buy a ticket, almost like a reservation, if you want to think of it that way, before coming. Why are we doing that? Again, just from a tracing point of view. Our guests, our hotel and vacation club guests, have loved the fact that there've been no day visitors allowed.
I was there in November and it was incredible. Just no queues, just lots of space. It was, but I can imagine that's not sustainable long term.
Yeah, look, I think once we build up Sun City more, we've got some very exciting plans to continue to grow and develop Sun City in time. It's not going to happen immediately because of obviously the trading concerns, but I think ideally we'd like to get to a stage where the resort becomes a residents-only experience with limited day visitors based on let's assume we would only allow 1,000 people in or 500 people in, etc. Because ultimately we need to protect the experience of the people that are paying a lot of money to come and stay at our resort, as you would have experienced yourself in terms of the much more pleasant experience in the Valley with less people. We have created distinct areas at the Valley, so we limit the numbers in certain areas to ensure social distancing, and by the fact that we have limited day visitors, etc., then we've effectively created an easier opportunity for us to limit the numbers going into a place like the Valley.
Great. Well, thanks so much for giving us a bit of a summation about that. And it sounds, your Sun Cities plans sound interesting. So we'd love to hear more about that when you're ready to talk about it. Moving on to a more sensitive topic, the South African strain, as the world seems to be referring to it, has resulted in so many countries sort of not allowing people who visited South Africa to travel to their countries. What do we need to do to reopen and to sort of move away from the sort of stigma that seems to be attached to South Africa at the moment? And, is it a concern for you? Is the international market one of your large source markets traditionally?
Yeah, the international market is key to us, particularly in a place like Cape Town, where 80 to 85% of our market mix, not only our market mix, but all the hotels in Cape Town's market mix is international. So, that market is obviously under huge pressure because of the lack of international arrivals. But somebody asked the same question of me yesterday about the South African strain. I think it's irrelevant, to be honest, because at the end of the day, it is all about a vaccination program, both in source markets and domestically. And it seems like a certain number of the vaccines, particularly the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, is effective against the variant. Not only our variant, but I see there's other variants that are popping up in different markets. There were talks. I was reading something about a Brazilian variant that's now found its way into the US. So I don't actually really worry about the SA variant. I think what's more important is the is the vaccination program gets rolled out effectively in our international source markets. And then we as a country have got to define what our stance is against people coming to visit South Africa when they've been vaccinated. Because once they've been vaccinated, does that mean they can freely come into South Africa? Do they still have to have a COVID test? We're quite silent on that. And I think government needs to define what our approach is going to be to international arrivals. Because the one thing we do know is there's a lot of pent-up demand for travel to Africa. All our offshore officers are telling us this. And the reason being is because we have lots of space and people want to get out of these urban environments, being cooped up inside homes and in bleak winters, etc. They want to get out. And we are a destination that has wide open spaces, beautiful game reserves, great beaches, mountains, etc. And people want to experience that. So I think once the vaccination program takes effect, you will see, and we've created clarity in what we're going to do as a country. I think you'll see a big upswing in international arrivals.
That's such a good
from a leisure point of view, anyway. I think from a corporate point of view, I think it's taken a little while longer to recover, just because people have got used to different ways of working, and I think there's going to be a step change in international and domestic corporate travel. I think you're not going to see as quick a return to pre-COVID levels from a corporate travel perspective.
It's a lot of good points. I mean, the rest of the world is moving swiftly ahead with vaccinations, you know, and they have large, you know, sectors. Family and friends in the UK are already vaccinated and, you know, wanting to get out, and we have remained silent. That is something that needs to be addressed here. Okay, so we moved recently back to lockdown level 1, and that saw an increase in sort of the MICE regulations, the numbers of people that can have events. I'm assuming that that's traditionally a large sector of your business. Have the regulation changes made it any easier to operate? Is it sustainable? Do you have any comments on that point?
It is a big part of our business, particularly at a place like Sun City, because we've got venues that can do anything from 10 guests to 10,000 guests. Mm-hmm. And effectively that section of our market is non-existent. We are seeing a few inquiries for day conferencing business in Sandton and Cape Town, etc., but very small, you know, all underneath the capacity numbers. The recent change now from 50 to 100 inside, and I think it's 250 outside now, isn't it? It doesn't really make a difference, because, you know, it's all about sentiment as well. People are not going to be that keen on getting a whole lot of people together to conference in the short term until there is comfort that the vaccination program has taken effect, that we're well on our way to eradicating COVID. Then I think you'll start to see a change. So we're not seeing any movement in conferencing inquiries in the first 6 months of 2021. So, you know, from now until the end of June, we are seeing inquiries for the back end of 2021 and into 2022. And a lot of that is big groups that have moved their dates because they just know that they can't, it's not going to be possible to plan an event of 1,000 people. Even if it was an event was going to be in September, October this year, there's a lot amount of pre-planning that's got to take place. And they're just saying, well, I'm not so sure we want to go through that now if there's still this uncertainty. And remember that one part of our business are associations, and the associations themselves are under financial pressure because a lot of their members have said, well, listen, I don't think I'm going to pay my membership fees this year to an association because I need to cut back on my expenses and my costs. So some of those associations who do their annual conventions and annual get-together are saying, listen, we're just not sure that financially we can put those events on this year. So again, those have been delayed. So that's a bit of a long answer to your question of has the change had an impact? No, it didn't. But those changes weren't really designed to address the conferencing and meetings market. It was more to address the opportunity for political and social gatherings, etc.
Okay, well, the message is once again, we need an effective, fast, efficient vaccine rollout in South Africa to get things up and running again. Yeah, thank you very much for talking to us, and yeah, for all of your insights into things. And I hope that it improves and that we get moving with our vaccination programs too.
Yeah, likewise. Pleasure, Sarah. Anytime you want to chat, I'm available.
Thank you, Graham.